Welcome to Something to Talk About. We're here at King's Restaurant in Tamuning, and I've got a double header for you. Today we're going to be talking to the Young Men's League of Guam. It's the oldest Chamorro fraternal organization here on Guam, and they've got some things planned because it's their 100th year. And I want to catch up with an old friend of ours. He's not old, but he's an old friend. Peter Onodera. He's a guy that has taught us so much about the language and our culture and our history. He is going to take up the other half of Something to Talk About here at King's Restaurant. Come on back. Thank you for joining us here on Something to Talk About, and thank you to our friends over at King's because they've provided us with another great meal. We've got some fruit, of course, the chaser platter, and we always try to give a sampler to some friends when they come through. And today, again, we are talking with our friend from Shriners Hospital. Janessa Quay is with us. She's a physician liaison, which is sort of a representative for Shriners Hospital. And we have an office in Guam.
Yes.
And so you're doing a lot of the outreach and public relations for them. And then would you like to introduce to the third guest in the studio this morning?
This is Fezzi. He's a Vermont teddy bear, and he comes with me everywhere.
Okay.
Yes.
Icebreaker,
Yes.
sort of?
Yes, especially when I have kids around me because he's so soft.
Yeah.
Everybody likes to pet him, even
Yeah.
adults.
Yeah.
So it kind of brings people towards me,
Right.
and we can start talking about Shriners.
Yeah. Talk to me about the history of this relationship with Shriners. As far back as I can remember, we've always had some kind of relationship with doctors coming through to tend to, I want to say originally the orthopedic needs, but
Right.
has that expanded since these early days of this relationship?
Well, the earliest records that we have of us coming out to outreach is in the 70s. And so I'm not really sure when it actually started, but I know that it's the 70s we have the records. And so twice a year, usually July or August or January and February, the physicians will come out here and they do look for children with orthopedic issues. That's anything with muscle, joint, or bone conditions. Shriners does have 22 hospitals, and 4 of those hospitals have burn care. So if we have a child here on Guam who has a burn and they're in stable condition, we are working through the Shriners Honolulu to get them to one of the other hospitals. But Shriners Honolulu is exclusively for orthopedic care, only bone, joint, and muscle. But we have the other hospitals that help us out when we have more complex cases.
Okay. And so over the years, because they were they coming out once a year, or were they still coming out did they always start off at 2 years?
We're
Twice a year.
not really sure,
Okay. But now we are at 2 times a year.
we are definitely at
Yeah.
2 times a year. And then we also have our bonus, who is Ken. He's our orthopedic manager who comes out here and checks on the kids who have braces. Not all kids that are in Shriners care need to go to the hospital. Some can be here and get braces, and those braces can be on the torso for scoliosis, on the legs for helping stretch out, or even helping a child walk correctly. And then there's also braces for your arms and hands. So he comes here, he checks on those kids, makes sure that the braces still fit correctly, that they're not in bad condition, and if they are outgrown or in bad condition, he goes back to Honolulu, makes them a new one, and comes back. And he's coming 3 to 4 times a year.
No kidding.
Yeah, he'll actually be here next month.
So they have a place where they can. Is it a supply of this kind of stuff that you're talking about, or is it someplace that they got to get it from the mainland and they bring the braces over? They're actually made in Hawaii.
They're made in Hawaii,
Oh,
so
okay.
he makes the form here.
Yeah. Okay.
So if the child's grown or they've broken their brace, he does a casting of that body part, and then he takes that casting back to Honolulu, and there's an actual orthopedic prosthetic department there on campus. So
okay.
he makes it there. And what's really fun If you check us out on Instagram, I took a picture of all the different designs that kids can pick, so they can be customized to a kid's personality.
Okay. Right,
and it's not something that's just so medical and boring.
Yeah, boring and a little bit scary. You have to admit that there is a little bit of a scare factor.
There is, and that's why I created the Instagram and Facebook accounts, because there's so much anxiety when it comes to the diagnosis that my child needs a brace or needs surgery, and then going through the process of going to clinics, and then if they have to go to the hospital. So what I've done is I'm trying to create something so you can go on there and look and see, oh, this is how a brace is made. This is what the lobby of the hospital looks like. This is family quarters. And we're developing it so that the anxiety is definitely decreased.
Have we seen, or is it by sheer fact that we've got a office here and we have doctors coming for a visit twice a year, increasing numbers of kids who are being treated on Guam?
What is really amazing is that we saw 314, bless you.
Oh, sorry about that.
Sorry, we saw 314 patients this last clinic. That was 70 patients a day in 6 days.
Wow.
So, and that was with us increasing our advertising, just having me out here and explaining, this is what Shriners is, this is what Shriners does. And I try to get into as many groups as possible. I went to the Mayor's Council, doctors' offices, educating everybody about what Shriners is and who we help and what we do.
I would have thought by now that there would have been a sort of general knowledge of it, though, right?
We are the best kept secret on this island.
Wow.
Yes. So my job is to make sure that it's not a secret anymore, that everybody knows when they're coming out.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
if there is a need, and clearly through the process with the doctor or pediatrician recognizing that there is some kind of need and attention, do they do they know to go directly through you, or is there already an established relationship with doctors locally?
So that's something that I've been working on, is educating physicians, early intervention, GEASE, all of those things, all those different organizations as to the process. So it can be anybody that can refer a child to Shriners. It can be a parent, it can be a teacher, a nurse, a doctor, a physical therapist, anybody. So what they need to do is, the next step is, once they've identified a bone, joint, or muscle condition, they call Charisse, which is 735-7351. I'm just getting that number out there because that is your very first step to getting into the Shriner system. And
Does that go through public health?
And that's public health.
I
She's
see.
up in Manila.
Okay.
Yeah, so she gives the next step. This is what you have to do next. And she guides you through the entire process, from your first appointment with Shriners to helping you with your travel plans to get to Honolulu if that's necessary.
How often is it necessary?
I'm not completely sure, but I know that it seems like we're sending kids over at least 2 to 3 times a month, it seems like. But I'm not sure the exact number. I do know that since Shriners started keeping records on Guam and the outreaches, that they've seen over 2,000 patients from Guam.
What is the most prevalent condition that you see, that has been seen in the past years?
Definitely scoliosis and clubfoot.
Really?
Those are the two. And those are two conditions that you really need to catch early, because if you have clubfoot, you're walking on the top of your foot, and that makes walking pretty difficult. So there's bracing that goes along with that, and then after bracing there's the surgery to help correct it, and then more bracing. Scoliosis is not always a surgical treatment. It can be helped with just a brace, and that's the one that goes on your torso. And if the scoliosis is painful and it's getting worse, that's when you need to start talking about going over to Honolulu for the surgery, where they put these rods in your back to keep the scoliosis from getting worse, because if it gets worse, your health gets worse.
We're talking about the curvature of the spine.
Right. And there's two different curves. There's the S curve and the C curve. And if it gets worse, it starts moving around your insides, which makes it hard to breathe, makes it hard to eat, makes it hard for all those normal bodily functions if they're being moved around, because your back can't go straight.
Can't support. Have they found a reason for or a cause of the increase in those two conditions? Is there anything that they're pinpointing exactly?
I'm not sure if it's so much an increase or if it's more
Prevalent,
education.
yeah, I see.
Yeah, we're more aware. Now there's ultrasounds that can pick up your child has a club foot before you're even born. So if a mom knows that their child has club foot, they can start getting into the Shriner system before their child is even born, so that they're in the system and they can start getting seen when it's appropriate. Scoliosis, it's another thing. Doctors are testing for it, looking for it. Parents are more aware of it.
Yeah.
So I think it's more awareness than it is an increase in those two diagnoses.
I see. What about in Hawaii? Do you understand where some of the larger issues are coming from? Is it environmental? Is it
I don't know.
the data in? I mean, it's a larger area clearly, and there's
Yeah.
far more reasons that people will become afflicted with one, condition or another.
Yeah.
I just don't know which, what are the most prevalent ones that you guys deal with, or that is
Yeah.
dealt with in Hawaii.
Yeah, I think definitely genetics takes a big part in that.
Right.
If there's scoliosis in your family, there's a good chance that your children are going to have scoliosis.
Yeah.
And then there's certain diagnoses that actually come with a orthopedic issue. Like a lot of children with cerebral palsy or Down syndrome, they tend to have more orthopedic issues with their bones and joints and muscles.
Well, we're talking to Janessa Quay, and we're going to be talking a little bit more about Shriners Hospital, a friendly neighbor here that we didn't even realize that had a permanent place in the community. We're on something to talk about. We'll be right back. And here's our double header for something to talk about. I wanted to have some time alone with Peter Onodera, and of course, I know that we didn't get to the actual crux of the interview because I was so impressed by the organization. Can we just quickly talk about the project that you have for the 100th commemoration?
Yes, as part of the Young Men's League of Guam, for the 100th anniversary, we were producing a commemorative book to highlight the 100 years of our existence, and we are appealing to all the brothers out there to be a part of this venture, in addition to the family members of those deceased brothers who have already left us and so forth. We're compiling together a historical account of the 10 decades of our existence, and so we're really working hard against a deadline that we're trying to meet of producing this commemorative book in time for our 101st birthday on March 2018. So once again, I'm here to appeal to the members of the Young Men's League of Guam, both present and past, as well as family members, to join us by calling me perhaps at 797-8710, and I'll be able to talk to you further about about the book and what we're trying to accomplish between now and the end of the year.
Okay.
Sidus Masi for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the short time that we have left, I never thought I would have to say this to you, but welcome home.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome back to Guam. If anybody had been following Peter Onodera, you would have seen that he had traveled in far-off lands from Guam, which I thought was so surprising, but you'd spent some time with your family in San Diego and then spent some time in Hawaii. And I was saying every person needs to, at some point in their life, I guess, have a little bit of time away so that they can come back with a newer, sort of fresher idea. Is that how it happened?
That's right. I was one of those that decided to take a break from the island and experience what it is like to live as a Chamorro in the mainland United States. And I had that opportunity, and although it was not that long, but it was long enough, I felt, for me to realize that it's true that you can still take the people out of the island and make the most of where they decide to stay at and so forth. And
But you
a
can't take
great
the
deal-
island out of the people.
And
Your
that's
attitude.
you're right. Now that part too, I
Yeah.
also believe in it, and that's what brought me home.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, I was able to meet up with a lot of Chamorros who came from Guam. Many of them I last saw when I was a child here in the village of Sanahanya. Former classmates that I went to school with, old neighbors, even distant relatives that I had a fleeting memory of and so forth, but I was able to reconnect again in San Diego, and that was, to me, was a very heartwarming
I
experience.
got to ask you, because your forte is the Chamorro language.
Right.
Are there many Chamorros, still Chamorro speaking from the time, from your classmates? And have they also helped the next generation preserve the language all the way out there?
Yes, yes. I did meet up with former classmates and former neighbors who still perpetuate the usage of the Chamorro language and so forth. And that to me was heartwarming, I thought. But at the same time too, there are also a lot of Chamorros who were born there and have never been to Guam, but still claim that they are Chamorro.
Do you feel like every time I talk to a transplanted Chamorro person who lives over there but doesn't have the experience of living here, I always really get the sense that there's a yearning, and it's inexplicable to them, but they know when they get here what the yearn has been answered, because they see it and they feel it and they go, this is like my people, and I belong, my whole soul belongs here, which is what that yearning is.
Yes,
For their
yes.
identification?
Yeah, I see that,
You see it?
but I also see that alive and well too in San Diego, where I was living at, because many of the things that they brought from Guam, they still practice over there too, like the fiesta celebration, the novenas, the traditional 9 days of rosary when somebody passes away and so forth. And
So a
even
lot of the
some
cultural practices are alive.
are still alive there and still practice.
But would you agree then, at the same time though, coming back to the motherland,
Yes.
there's something about the land, there's something about the dirt and the smell and the,
Yes,
the sounds.
Yes, that is also true, and many of them that end up coming over here for, even no matter if it's just a short period of time, they feel that connection
Yeah.
to the earth, so
There
to
it
speak,
is, yeah.
to their mother country, and I always also tell them that Guam is the mother country of the Chamorros, whether you see it or not.
Yeah.
So let's all make it a point that
To try
you know,
to visit at some point. Yeah.
Visit it at some point, but practice also what you learned
Yeah.
from living on Guam.
What are you doing now that you've come back differently or new that you would not have known unless you had gone?
Gosh, that's a very good, challenging question. If anything, I kind of picked up where I left off and so forth. But if it's anything that I do know that's still steadfast in my heart is the perpetuation of the Chamorro language and the culture. I still write in the Chamorro language. I still speak it. I'm teaching it again in a private pursuit.
Do you feel that there's more of a resolve to do it more passionately?
Yes.
Because you've gone away and seen where it hasn't necessarily been practiced, written, and spoken, and you want to sort of save it? I don't know if you want,
I
that's the right
see it
word.
more of a resolve now, especially that I became involved again in the Young Men's League of Guam with the 100th anniversary. But I also see the current issue at hand of our self-determination. Many of the people that I continue to come in contact with are saying the same thing. Let's perpetuate who we are as a people and as a culture, especially to the issue of the Putehi Ilitegzan. That's still very deep, running deep in a lot of people's hearts and so forth. We need to save as much as we possibly could of our island and our culture.
So
our
did you come back
peoplehood.
as an activist?
Well, I was always accused of being a literary activist because
Yeah.
of my writing.
Yeah, but now
and
have
so
you become a
forth.
political activist?
No, I try to stay away from the political life.
That's hard to do, though.
Yeah,
It is hard to do.
It is hard
Yeah.
to do, but I try to stay away
Yeah.
from that because I feel that the nurturing of the Chamorro language and culture is still very important.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
important enough to fight for.
Important
Absolutely.
enough to fight for.
Man, we've
Yeah.
lost our time with you, but
Yes.
I'm so happy that I had some time to catch up with you because I noticed that you were back, and I'm just thrilled.
Oh,
I'm
thank
just
you,
thrilled,
too.
and so many people. You know, you've been a beloved Chamorro teacher And so many people, I'm sure, are going to try to come back and reconnect.
Yes, and I hope so too. And thank you very much
Welcome
for having me on
home.
this show. Yes, thank you.
That'll do it for us on Something to Talk About. We'll talk to you later. Thank you.